My daughter raised her champagne glass in front of 80 guests and told me I could finally meet my grandchildren if I handed over every dollar I had left. For a second, the entire ballroom went still. The string quartet kept playing near the fireplace, but even the music sounded embarrassed. Behind my daughter, tall windows looked out over a perfect Connecticut lawn, a row of black cars, and a house so bright and grand it seemed built to make ordinary people feel small. My name was Evelyn Harper then. I say then because some names stop being homes. Some names become cages. And sometimes, if you want to survive your own family, you have to bury the woman they thought they could use. Claire stood beside her husband, Grant Whitmore, smiling like a politician's wife. She was 45 that night, wearing diamonds at her throat and my eyes in her face, though she had spent 20 years pretending. We in a navy suit, holding a leather folder like he was about to close a deal. He was a lawyer, a financial advisor, and the little boy I had once carried through a snowstorm because his asthma got bad and I didn't save money for a cab. They had invited me to Claire's birthday after 20 years of silence. 20 years of phone calls that went to voicemail. 20 years of birthday cards with no answer. 20 years of Christmas checks I could barely afford, mailed with shaking hands and stupid hope. 20 years of learning my grandchildren's names from public school newsletters and blurry social media photos before Claire blocked me completely. Noah. Lily. Ava. 3 children who grew up believing their grandmother did not care, while I kept a drawer full of receipts for gifts I sent into a house that never sent love back. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment above a laundromat in Queens. The radiator knocked, the hallway smelled like bleach, and the kitchen window looked at a brick wall. On my living room shelf I kept 5 old photographs: Claire at 7 with missing teeth, Mark in his Yankees cap, my husband Henry before the heart attack, and the 4 of us in front of the brick house in Flushing that I sold after Henry died. After Henry's funeral, I cleaned offices at night and worked mornings at a diner on Northern Boulevard. I learned how to stretch soup, delay bills, and smile when customers snapped their fingers. I sold my wedding bracelet for Claire's SAT tutor. I pawned Henry's watch when Mark needed a laptop for law school. I did not call it sacrifice. Mothers like me called it Tuesday. They grew up. Claire married Grant, a real estate developer with soft hands and a hard mouth. Mark moved to Manhattan, stopped saying "Mom," then stopped answering at all. At first I blamed busyness. Then stress. Then myself. Maybe my apartment embarrassed them. Maybe I cried too much after Henry died. Maybe I reminded them of a poor childhood they wanted to bury. Then the invitation arrived. Cream paper. Silver letters. My full name written as if I still belonged to someone. Mrs. Evelyn Harper, you are warmly invited to celebrate Claire Whitmore's 45th birthday. I stood in the laundromat lobby with the envelope pressed to my chest. I told myself not to hope, but hope does not age with the body. Hope stays young, foolish, and ready to run toward any open door. I bought a burgundy dress from a clearance rack. It cost $189, which was too much. Booty wanted to arrive as a mother, not a beggar. I had my hair set. I bought Claire and Grant a silver serving tray engraved with their initials, using money Ishold have kept for dental work. I carried it home on the bus like a peace offering. The house in Greenwich looked like something from a magazine. White roses climbed the front steps. Valets moved between cars. Women in silk laughed under chandeliers. A server offered me champagne before anyone offered me a hug. Claire met me in the foyer. "Mom," she said. Not Mama, which she had called me when she was little. Not "I missed you." Just Mom, flat and careful, like a label on an old box. She kissed the air beside my cheek. "You made it. I wouldn't miss your birthday," I whispered. Her eyes swept over my dress, my old black purse, my sensible shoes, the gift bag. Something tightened around her mouth. "Everyone's out back," she said, and turned away before I could open my arms. That first small wound should have warned me. But a mother can bleed and still call it love. The party looked like a charity gala. Servers carried scallops. The bar was carved from ice. People discussed boarding schools, ski houses, investments, and places I had only seen on television. Claire introduced me to 2 friends as my mother, Evelyn, and one woman asked if I lived nearby. "Queens," I said. "Oh," she answered, and somehow that one syllable put me on the wrong side of an invisible wall. Then Mark arrived. My heart forgot everything for 1 second. I saw the boy with a scraped knee, the teenager asleep over textbooks, the child crying at Henry's funeral and asking if we would be okay. His eyes met mine. I lifted my hand. He looked away. Not by accident. He looked away like eye contact might cost him something. I sat alone near the hallway, holding a glass of water because I was afraid one sip of wine would make me emotional in front of people waiting to laugh. My grandchildren passed close enough for me to smell Lily's perfume and hear Ava complain about her shoes. Noah was tall, almost a man. Lily was 16, serious and watchful. Ava was 12, still young enough to hide behind stair railings. I wanted to say, I am your grandmother. I sent the giraffe. I loved you before I knew your voices. But they looked through me, and Claire never brought them over. At 9 p.m., Grant stepped onto a platform near the piano and tapped his glass. Claire and Mark joined him. A photographer moved closer. Family and friends, Grant said, thank you for celebrating Claire tonight. This year has been meaningful for her family legacy. People clapped. I clapped too, because loneliness trains you to be grateful for scraps. Grant continued. We recently secured an opportunity to purchase a coastal property on Hilton Head Island. Not just a vacation home, but a legacy home where generations can gather. Claire searched the room until she found me. Mom, she said into the microphone, come up here. Every face turned. I should have stayed seated. Instead, I walked to the platform, still. Believing the invitation might have a heart inside it. Claire took my arm. Her fingers pressed too hard. Mark opened the leather folder. Mom, he said loudly, we know you sold the old house after Dad died and that you've kept a substantial amount sitting in low-yield accounts. Claire and I think this is the perfect chance for you to be part of the family again. Be part of the family again. As if I had wandered off. As if I had misplaced them. Grant smiled. The contribution we discussed is $480,000. That would secure Evelyn's place in the family property and give her time with the grandchildren she has always wanted. Talk now. A few guests sighed as if this was touching. The photographer lowered his camera but did not leave. I stared at Mark. What contribution? His smile hardened. Mom, don't make this uncomfortable. You invited me to your sister's birthday to ask me for money? Claire leaned close, still smiling for the guests. Don't embarrass me. The sentence cut deeper than shouting would have. I had been invisible for 20 years, but suddenly my shame was public entertainment. Mark pulled out a document and a pen. It's structured through a family trust, he said. Very simple. You sign tonight, we handle the wire Monday, and everything becomes official. You'll have a room in the house. Holidays. Birthdays. Access to the kids. Access. That was the word he used for blood. I took the paper because my hands moved before my pride could stop them. My eyes were old, but they were not stupid. It was not a contribution agreement. It was an irrevocable family trust. Mark would be trustee. Claire would be co-trustee. My money would transfer into their control. There was language about declining capacity, future care decisions, and Mark coordinating my housing if I showed cognitive deterioration. Where did you get my bank information? I asked. Mark's jaw tightened. You signed paperwork after your surgery 4 years ago. I helped you. I signed a hospital form so you could talk to a nurse. You signed more than that. I looked at Claire. Did you know? She did not blink. We know you need guidance. You live alone in that awful apartment. You hoard money and complain nobody visits. I never complained to you. You never answered. Grant's smile disappeared. Evelyn, he said quietly, most families would put an aging parent somewhere and forget about it. We're offering inclusion. A man near the bar laughed under his breath. Something in me cracked, but not the way they expected. It cracked like ice breaking over a river. No, I said. Claire's hand tightened painfully. Mom, not here. You brought me here. Mark lowered his voice. Think carefully. You're 68. One day you'll need us. I looked at Myson, the boy I had fed before myself, the man who now treated my loneliness like leverage. I needed you when I was sick, I said. I needed you after your father died. I needed you every Christmas I ate dinner alone. You weren't there then. I don't believe you'll be there after the wire clears. The room went silent. Claire's face flushed. You always turn everything into a tragedy. No, I said. You turned your mother into a transaction. I stepped down, knees shaking, and walked to the hallway. I grabbed my purse and the silver tray I would never give her. Mark followed me to the front door. You can't leave like this, he snapped. Watch me. He grabbed my arm. Not hard enough to bruise. Hard enough to remind me he thought he could. Don't touch me again. His voice went ugly. You'll die alone in that apartment, and when you call us, don't expect anyone to come. Behind him, Claire said, if you leave, don't expect to see the children. Ever. I turned once. Noah and Lily were on the stairs. Ava peeked from behind the railing. Their faces were pale and confused. Claire stepped in front of them like a curtain. I hope someday you hear the truth, I said. Then I walked out. Outside, the October air was cold enough to wake me. I sat on a stone bench beside Waitrose's while the valet called a taxi. My phone buzzed in my purse. I almost ignored it. Then it buzzed again. The message was from my credit union. Wire transfer request initiated, $480,000. If this was not you, call immediately. The party music floated through the open doors behind me. I looked back at the glowing house, at the silhouettes of my children, moving inside like they had already won. And I understood something worse than being unwanted. They had not invited me to ask for my money. They had invited me because one of them had already tried to steal it. I called the credit union from the taxi with both hands wrapped around my phone. "This is Evelyn Harper," I said. "Someone tried to move money from me account. Freeze everything." The woman asked security questions while the highway lights blurred past the window. My mother's maiden name. The street I grew up on. The last 4 digits of my social security number. I answered like my life depended on it, because it did. "The transfer has been stopped," she finally said. But the request used authorized credentials connected to a legal document submitted 4 years ago. My stomach turned. Mark, the gallbladder surgery. The papers he had placed under my hand while I was dizzy and afraid. He had told me they were routine. I had been so grateful he came to the hospital that I signed without reading every page. That was the part that nearly broke me. I had mistaken paperwork for love. Back in Queens, I locked my apartment door and dragged a chair under the knob. I did not sleep. At 2 a.m., I made coffee. At 3, I pulled every folder from my cabinet: bank statements, insurance papers, medical records, Henry's death certificate, tax returns, birthday receipts, shipping confirmations, and the packet from my surgery. There it was. A durable power of attorney. My signature sat at the bottom, crooked and weak. Mark's name was printed above it. Financial authority. Banking. Trust creation. Real estate, healthcare coordination. My son had not come to protect me. He had come to prepare. At 8 a.m., I called a senior legal hotline. By noon, I was sitting in the Brooklyn office of Nora Bell, an attorney with silver braids, sharp eyes, and a voice like a locked door. Her office smelled like coffee and cinnamon from the bakery downstairs. She read the power of attorney. She read the trust document. She listened to the party story without interrupting, then she looked over her glasses. "Mrs. Harper, your son is either reckless, greedy, or both. Is there a legal category for both? There is if he used this document beyond your understanding and tried to transfer funds without your consent. He's a lawyer. That makes it worse." She asked me what I wanted. It hot about Claire's voice saying, "Don't embarrass me." I thought about Mark's hand on my arm. I thought about Grant calling my humiliation inclusion. "I want peace," I said. "But I didn't want peace that lets them do it again." Nora nodded. "Peace without boundaries is just surrender." That sentence changed my life. For the next 6 weeks, we revoked the power of attorney, froze old access, changed accounts, filed a fraud notice, updated my healthcare proxy, and rewrote my will. I created a trust of my own that named no child of mine as beneficiary, trustee, emergency contact, or decision maker. Nora asked where my estate should go. I thought of Henry. When we were young, we dreamed of retiring near the water. Maybe Maine, maybe Oregon, somewhere foggy and honest, with a small table for morning coffee. We never got there. Headied too early, and I spent the years after him trying to raise children who would later act like my love was a debt they could collect. I told Nora about Harbor Lighthouse, a Portland shelter that helped older women abandoned or financially abused by family. I had mailed them $25 once after reading about them online. They sent me a handwritten thank you card, the first one I had received in months. "Leave it to them," I said. "I'll off it." Nora paused. "You're sure? My children have had enough of my life." Claire called 12 times after the party. Her voicemails were not apologies. They were warnings dressed as family, misunderstanding, embarrassment, healing, damage, unity. Mark sent emails about my cognitive concerns and financial isolation. Grant left one message saying he hoped I understood how much trouble I was causing. I saved everything Nora told me not to answer. At first, silence felt cruel. Then it felt like withdrawal from poison. I returned the burgundy dress. I sold the silver tray online for less than half what I paid. I took the family photos from my shelf and placed them in a shoebox. I did not throw them away. Love does not leave the body cleanly. But I stopped making my pain the first thing I saw every morning. In January, I left New York. Nothing dramatic. No fake death. Just a legal name change, a new phone number, a new bank, and a small rented cottage in Newport, Oregon, 3 blocks from the ocean. My new name was Evelyn Rose, because Rose had been my mother's middle name, and because I wanted something that belonged to someone who had loved me properly. Nora said I did not have to change my name. "I know," I said. "I did not do it because I was hiding. I did it because Evelyn Harper belonged to people who only said her name when they wanted something." Newport was gray, windy, and honest. The ocean did not flatter anyone. It arrived loud and cold every morning, and I loved it. I bought a yellow raincoat. I learned which cafe had the best chowder. I met Martha, a widow next door who painted terrible watercolors with great confidence. I volunteered at a senior center where women argued over bingo and a man named Frank cheated at Scrabble like a saint. For the first time in years, my phone was quiet and the quiet did not hurt. Then, in April, it rang. Unknown number. Hello? A young voice breathed on the other end. Is this Mrs. Harper? My hand tightened. Who is this? My name is Lily. Lily Whitmore. The room tilted. Claire's daughter. My granddaughter. How did you get this number? I asked. I found it in Grandpa Henry's old Bible, she whispered. Mom had a bushy in the basement. I was looking for my birth certificate, and I found all these cards. What cards? Birthday cards. Christmas cards. For me, Noah, and Ava. Some had receipts. Some had gifts. There was a stuffed giraffe still wrapped in plastic. Mom told us you didn't want to be in our lives. I closed my eyes. There it was. The truth I had feared, spoken by a child. She told you that? She said you were unstable. She said you never sent anything. I'm sorry. You don't have to apologize for what adults taught you. I saw you at the party, Lily said. On the platform. You looked trapped. I covered me mouth. Grandma, she whispered. The word hit me so hard I had to grip the table. I'm here, I said. Did you really send Ava that giraffe? It was too big, I said, crying and laughing at once. I carried it on 2 buses. We talked for 14 minutes. She told me Noah was away at college and angry at everyone. Ava loved horses. Claire and Grant fought in the study. Mark came over often, always whispering. The Hilton Head property was not really a family dream. Grant needed private money to secure financing because another development had stalled. So it was never about family, I said. No, Lily said softly. I didn't think it was. Before she hung up, she asked, did you leave because you didn't love us? No, sweetheart. I left because loving people should not require me to hand them a weapon. After that, Lily called once a week. I never asked her to choose sides. I never insulted Claire. I told her about Henry, about how Claire used to sing in the bathtub. About how Mark once cried because a stray cat would not follow him home. I told her she had been wanted by me before she could say my name. Those calls became little lights along the shore of my week. Then the lawsuit arrived. A sheriff's deputy brought the papers to my cottage on a rainy Thursday. Martha was on my porch with burnt lemon cookies when he asked for Evelyn Rose, formerly Evelyn Harper. Claire, Mark, and Grant were suing me in Connecticut Superior Court for breach of oral agreement, intentional financial harm, and defamation. They claimed I had promised $480,000 for the Hilton Head property and that my refusal caused financial losses. They claimed I was spreading false stories to alienate the grandchildren. There was more. Mark had filed an emergency petition questioning my capacity and requesting temporary conservatorship over my finances. For a moment, the room narrowed to the paper in my hands. Not because I thought they would win. Because I finally understood there was no bottom. They had ignored me when I loved them. Cornered me when they needed money. Tried to empty my account. Now they were trying to make me legally helpless. I called Nora. She listened without interrupting. I expected the contract claim, she said. I was hoping they weren't stupid enough to file the conservatorship petition. Why? Because now they have to explain why a competent woman who moved, hired counsel, secured her accounts, and updated her estate plan needs the people who tried to take her money to control it. I'm tired, I said. I know. I don't want to fight my children. You are not fighting your children, Nora said. You are fighting what they became when they decided. Your love was a weakness. What do we do? Her voice sharpened. We let them speak under oath. 2 weeks later, I flew back east with a gray suit, a folder full of receipts, call logs, unanswered messages, medical records, the bank fraud report, and the old power oath attorney Mark had used like a trap. Nora met me at the airport. Mrs. Rose, she said, using my new name because she respected it, your children wanted a courtroom. I looked out at the planes lifting into the dark. Then let's give them one. The Stamford courtroom smelled like old wood, carpet cleaner, and fear hidden under perfume. Claire sat at the plaintiff's table in a cream suit, eyes red but makeup perfect. Grant sat beside her, jaw tight, phone face down. Mark whispered to their lawyer with the confidence of a man who had forgotten confidence is not evidence. When I walked in, all 3 looked up. For one small, ugly second, I enjoyed their surprise. They expected the mother from the party, shaky, humiliated, desperate for a seat at their table. Instead, I walked in wearing charcoal, my hair shorter, my spine straight, Nora beside me. Behind us came Lily. Claire's face changed so fast it frightened me. Lily, she hissed. What are you doing here? Lily swallowed. Telling the truth. Noah arrived 10 minutes later from college. He did not sit beside me. He did not sit beside Claire either. He sat in the back row with his arms crossed, angry at everyone. Judge Marian Adler entered at 9:30. She had white hair, a dry voice, and eyes that made nonsense nervous. The hearing began with Mark's emergency petition. Their lawyer painted me as confused, isolated, unstable, and vulnerable to outside influence. He said I had abruptly cut off my family, changed my name, moved across the country, and made irrational estate decisions after a distressing family event. He called the Hilton Head payment a mutually understood family arrangement. I listened while strangers heard the old labels in new legal clothes. Difficult. Dramatic. Needy, embarrassing, now unstable, because unstable women could be controlled. Then Nora rose. Your Honor, Mrs. Rose is not isolated. She retained counsel, updated her estate plan, secured her accounts after suspicious activity, moved voluntarily, maintains friendships, volunteers, pays her bills, and traveled here independently. The only people claiming she lacks capacity are the same people who attempted to gain control of her money. She handed over documents, medical evaluation, cognitive screening, bank report, revoked power of attorney, doctor's letter, volunteer confirmation, rental agreement, tax records. Then came the attempted wire transfer. A credit union investigator testified by video that a $480,000 transfer request had been initiated through credentials tied to an old financial authorization, stopped only after I reported it. Judge Adler looked at Mark. Did you initiate or assist in initiating that transfer? Mark's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client, that is a simple question, the judge said. Mark leaned toward his lawyer, whispered, then straightened. I was exploring options. Options for whose money? My mother's funds, for a family investment she had agreed to consider. Did she authorize the transfer? She had agreed in spirit. A sound moved through the room. Not laughter. Disgust trying to stay polite. Nora stood. Your Honor, Theplin Tiff's event photographer recorded portions of the birthday announcement. The video was produced in Discovery. The screen rolled in. The courtroom dimmed. There he was in the burgundy dress, small beneath crystal lights. Claire's hand gripped my arm. Mark held the folder. Grant announced the Hilton Head House. Mark's voice came clearly through the speakers. You sign tonight, we handle the wire Monday. Then my own voice, you invite him to your sister's birthday to ask me for money? Claire's whisper, captured because the camera stood too close, don't embarrass me. Mark again, think carefully. You're 68. One day you'll need us. The video ended. No one moved. Judge Adler removed her glasses. That does not sound like a mutual agreement. The conservatorship petition died before lunch. The judge denied it from the bench, calling it unsupported and retaliatory in appearance. She warned Mark that using legal process to pressure an older adult was not a strategy the court viewed lightly. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt hollow. There is a pain that comes when strangers protect you from people who once slept under your roof. After lunch came the civil claim. Claire testified first. She cried beautifully, the way she had as a child when she wanted the last cookie. She said I had always been complicated. She said she loved me but I demanded too much. She said the party was meant to heal things, and I twisted it. Nora approached with a folder. When was the last time you visited your mother before the birthday party? Claire dabbed her eyes. I don't remember exactly. More than 10 years? I was busy raising children. More than 15? Claire's mouth tightened. Did you invite her to Thanksgiving in the last 20 years? No. Christmas? No. Your children's birthdays? No. School events? No. Did you send her photos of her grandchildren? I meant to. For 20 years? Claire's face hardened. She could have tried harder. Nora lifted a plastic folder. Your Honor, these are certified mail receipts, delivery confirmations, copies of cards, and bank statements showing gifts Mrs. Rose sent to the Whitmore children over 19 years. Copies appeared on the screen. Happy 5th birthday, Noah. I hope you like the train set. Dear Lily, your mother loved stories at your age. Maybe you will too. Ava, I saw this giraffe and thought it looked like it needed a brave girl. Lily began to cry behind me. Nora looked at Claire. Did you give these gifts to your children? Claire said nothing. Mrs. Whitmore? I was protecting them. From birthday cards? From confusion. From their grandmother? Claire's tears stopped. Then Lily took the stand. She was 16, pale but steady. Claire stared at her as if truth itself had become disobedient. Nora's voice softened. Before this year, what did you believe about Mrs. Rose? I believed she didn't want us, Lily said. My mom said she was unstable and didn't like our family. What changed? I found a box in the basement. Cards, gifts, receipts. A lot of them. Some were never opened. I called her because I wanted to know if they were real. And were they? Yes. What did she say when you called? She said we didn't have to apologize for what adults taught us. A tear slipped down my face. Nora handed Lily a copy of one card. Would you read a small part? Lily's voice broke. Dear Lily, I don't know your favorite color yet, so I chose blue because your mother loved blue when she was little. If you ever want to know me, I will be here. Love, Grandma Evelyn. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, Claire was crying again, but this time she looked angry at the tears. Mark testified next and made the mistake of trying to sound like the smartest man in the room. Had described my money as underutilized assets, my apartment as substandard, and the attempted wire as preliminary administrative action. Nora let him talk. Good lawyers give arrogant men rope and wait. Then she asked, did your mother ask you to move $480,000 from her account? She had indicated openness to participation. That was not my question. No, not in those words. Did she sign the family trust document? No. Did she say no on video? She was emotional. Did she say no? Mark looked at the judge, yes. Nora clicked to the next exhibit. Your Honor, Exhibit 32 is an email from Mr. Harper to Mr. Whitmore, sent 3 days before the party. Mark's face changed. Nora read it aloud. If she signs in front of everyone, she won't back out without looking crazy. Once funds are in trust, we can manage the rest. Don't mention the liquidity problem. The courtroom went still. There are moments when truth enters a room so completely that even liars stop breathing. Claire whispered, Mark. Grant stared at the table. Judge Adler leaned forward. Did you write this email? Mark's lawyer looked like a man reconsidering his career. Yes, Mark said. Nora turned to Grant. The Hilton Head House, it turned out, was not a sweet family dream. It was tied to a development package. Grant needed private capital to unlock financing after a luxury condo project in Stamford stalled. Mark had suggested my money as family liquidity. Claire had agreed because, in one email, she wrote that I owed the family something after making everything hard when Dad died. Hard. That was what she called Henry dying. That was what she called me working 2 jobs. That was what she called thrift store clothes, discount groceries, and nights I sat at the kitchen table choosing which bill to delay. By late afternoon, the case could no longer wear perfume. Nora presented call logs showing no calls from Claire or Mark to me for years except after the party. She presented messages I had sent, happy birthday, sweetheart. I miss you. How are the kids? She presented receipts, delivery confirmations, medical records, and the trust naming Harbor Lighthouse instead of my children. Then she called me. I walked to the witness stand and raised my right hand. For a second, I remembered parent-teacher nights. Cafeteria coffee, Mark's small hand in mine, Claire's school concerts where she searched the room until she saw me. Nora asked my name. Evelyn Rose, I said. Formerly Evelyn Harper? Yes. Why did you change it? I looked at my children. Because every time they said Evelyn Harper, it was followed by a request, a criticism, or a threat. I wanted a name that belonged to me. Did you abandon your children? No. They were adults when they left my life. I did not abandon them. I waited for them until waiting became another way of hurting myself. Did you promise them $480,000? No. Did you want to know your grandchildren? My voice broke. Yes. More than I can say. Why didn't you? Because I was locked out of their lives and then blamed for not being inside. I turned to the judge. Your Honor, I am 68. I have been poor. I have been widowed. I have been lonely. But I am not confused. My children invited me to a party after 20 years because they wanted my money. They put me on a platform so I would be too ashamed to say no. When I said no, my son tried to move the money anyway. When I protected myself, they called me unstable. When my granddaughter found the truth, they called me dangerous. I took a breath. I loved them when they had nothing. I do not owe them everything because they now want more. Their lawyer tried to cross-examine me. He asked if loneliness made me exaggerate. I said loneliness does not forge certified mail receipts. He asked if I resented my children's success. I said I paid for parts of it with my body. He asked if removing them from my will was punishment. I sighed no one is entitled to inherit from a person they treated like an inconvenience. Then he asked if I understood my actions might permanently damage the family. I looked at Claire, Mark, Lily, Noah, and the judge. The family was damaged when love became conditional on a wire transfer, I said. Judge Adler took 35 minutes. When she returned, everyone stood. She dismissed the breach claim for lack of evidence. She dismissed the defamation claim. She denied all requests tied to my finances. She referred the attempted transfer and use of the power of attorney for further investigation. She ordered Claire, Mark, and Grant not to contact me except through counsel. Then she said the sentence I will carry until my last day. Adult children do not regain the privileges of family by trying to purchase access to a parent's assets. Mark tried to speak. The judge cut him off. Mr. Harper, you are an officer of the court. I suggest you remember that before creating another document involving your mother's money. The gavel came down. It did not sound like victory. It sounded like a door locking from my side. Outside the courtroom, Claire caught up with me near the elevators. Mom, she said. I stopped because old reflexes are stubborn. She was crying hard now, not beautifully. For a moment I saw the girl from Coney Island, sticky fingers, missing teeth, both arms. Around my neck. Please, she said. We can fix this. I wanted that to be true. That is the cruelest part. Even after everything, a mother's heart looks for a chair to set at the table. Claire, I said softly, you didn't want to fix this when I was poor enough to be harmless. You wanted to fix it when I became expensive to lose. I was angry after Dad died, she whispered. Everything was hard. We felt like a burden. You were children. Of course you were a burden sometimes. That is what children are. A beautiful burden. And I carried you because I loved you. I didn't know how to come back. You could have called. She looked at the floor. The answer was there. She could have. She didn't. Mark approached, face gray. Mom, this has gone far enough. No, I said. It went far enough when you Trieto turned my old age into a legal strategy. I was trying to keep the family together. You were trying to keep Grant's financing together. Mark lowered his voice. You'll regret burning this bridge. I smiled. His threats sounded small now. Mark, I lived on the far side of that bridge for 20 years. Ifnally stopped waving at people who never crossed it. He said nothing. Lily ran to me after Claire stepped away, then stopped short, as if afraid she needed permission to hug me. I opened my arms. She folded into me, crying like a younger child. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know. Noah wants to talk, but he's mad. He has a right to be. At you? At everyone. Noah stood near the courthouse doors, pretending not to watch. When he came over, his eyes were guarded. Did you really come to my kindergarten graduation? He asked. I nodded. I stood outside the fence because I wasn't on the list. You wore a paper crown. His face crumpled for half a second. I thought you didn't care. I cared so much I kept caring after it hurt. He wiped his face. Can I call you sometime? You can. But you don't have to choose a war because adults built one. You are allowed to love your mother and still know she lied. He nodded like that sentence gave him permission to breathe. I flew back to Oregon the next morning. By summer, Mark was under review by the state bar. Grant's Hilton Head financing collapsed after investors learned about the litigation and the stalled Stanford project. Claire sold one of her cars. Lily told me these things carefully, not with joy, but with the grim amazement of a child watching adults meet gravity. I did not celebrate their downfall. Celebration would have tied me to them. But I did drink one good cup of coffee on my porch the morning Nora called to say the investigation was moving forward. In August, I visited Harbor Lighthouse, the shelter named in my trust. It was a converted old inn in Portland with peeling blue trim and a garden full of stubborn roses. Women lived there after sons sold their homes, daughters drained accounts, nephews stole medication money, husbands died, or families vanished. I recognized them immediately, not their faces. Their posture. The careful way they took up space, as if still apologizing for needing a chair. I changed my estate plan again, not to remove them, but to give sooner. Nora helped me create a fund in Henry's name to pay for emergency housing, legal consultations, and transportation for older adults escaping financial abuse. We call it the Henry Harper Room. It had 6 chairs, a bookshelf, a coffee maker, and a framed photograph of the Oregon coast. The first woman who used it was named Ruth. She had slept in her car for 3 nights before arriving. Who donated this? She asked. Someone who waited too long to save herself, I said. She took my hand. That was when I understood family can be made from rescue, not just blood. Lily kept calling. Noah called too, awkwardly at first, then with more ease. Ava sent me a drawing of the giraffe after Lily told her the truth gently. I did not push. I did not send expensive gifts. I sent letters, small things, postcards, books, pieces of myself that did not require Añanito buy a house to receive them. Claire wrote me once. A real letter, 5 pages, no lawyer language. She apologized, explained, blamed grief, blamed Mark, then apologized again. I read it on a bench above the ocean while the wind tried to steal the pages. There were sentences I had waited 20 years to read. I'm sorry I kept the kids from you. I'm sorry I made you feel small. I'm sorry money became more important than you. But apologies can arrive after the house has burned down and still not rebuild it. I folded the letter and placed it in Henry's Bible. Not because I forgave everything. Not because I wanted revenge. Because some doors do not need to be slammed. Some doors can simply remain closed while light enters another window. In September, Claire asked through Lily if she could call me. I said not yet. That answer cost me a night of sleep. The old Evelyn Harper would have run to the phone. She would have answered before it rang twice and said yes to any crumb, any promise, any chance to pretend the years had been a misunderstanding. Evelyn Rose made tea, sat by the window, and let not yet be enough. On my 69th birthday, Martha brought over a cake she had clearly dropped and repaired with too much frosting. Frank from the senior center gave me a Scrabble tile with the letter E and said it was worth only 1 point but strategically powerful. Lily called it lunch. Noah sent flowers with a notie that said, I don't know how to do this, but I'm trying. Ava mailed a drawing of me standing beside the giant giraffe, both of us wearing crowns. That evening, I walked to the beach alone. The Pacific sky was the color of pewter. The tide was low. The wet sand reflected the last light like broken glass. I sat on driftwood and listened to the ocean strike the rocks again and again, patient and unstoppable. For 20 years, I thought being alone was the worst thing that could happen to me. I was wrong. The worst thing was sitting at the edge of someone else's life, begging for scraps from a table I had helped build. Alone can be peaceful. Alone can be honest. Alone can be a locked door, a warm room, a bank account no one else can touch, a name no one uses like a leash. I still miss my children sometimes. That is the truth people do not like in revenge stories. Freedom does not erase love. It teaches love where to stand. Some nights, I miss the little girl who called me mama and the little boy who fell asleep with his head on my lap. I miss who they were before pride, money, shame, and silence made strangers of them. But I do not miss being their emergency fund. I do not miss being hidden out. I do not miss waiting by a phone as if my life needed permission to continue. My name is Evelyn Rose now. I am 69. I am a widow. I am a grandmother, even if that word came late. I am the founder of a room where discarded women can sit down without apologizing. I am not rich the way Grant wanted me to be, but I am wealthy in the only way that survived the courtroom. I own myself. Before leaving the beach, I took out my phone. For the first time in my life, I did not check for missed calls from Claire or Mark. Instead, I opened a message from Lily. It was a photograph of the stuffed giraffe, freed from plastic after all those years, sitting in Ava's bedroom with a blue ribbon around its neck. Under it, Lily had written, "It made it home." I looked at the picture until the screen blurred. Then I put the phone away, stood up, and walked back toward the little yellow lights of my life, leaving clean footprints in the wet sand behind me.